Hello, ducklings. Today we're going to be talking about how to write strong leads for our memoirs. So, even if you feel like your memoir starts out pretty well at this point, I think it's worth it to always go back and think about whether we can make our lead stronger because that lead is that first selling point for your reader that's going to either draw them into the story or not. So, the way that we do that is a few different steps. So, firstly, I like to look back either at my plan or at my draft. And then I try to choose the three or four most intense or interesting events in the text. Or I guess in this case, in the event, since it's something real that happened to you. So for me, as I'm looking back over my draft, the things that were most intense are probably the parts where I found out about the fire and also when I was like actually experiencing trying to get to my house or where I went into the apartment after the fire and was like having to go through my stuff. Like that to me, those are the three times that were the most intense and probably then the most interesting for my reader. So when I think about those intense or interesting events, you could try writing about a couple of those events. Like give yourself a few minutes to write out a few leads and see which one you like the best. So you could try using dialogue, onomatopoeia, action, or a description of the setting. So I picked first the moment when I found out, which is sort of how I'm starting now. So it was early in the morning, the day after the last day of my first year of teaching. It's how I currently start. But that's not like sucking me in. So let's see what I write to try to make it more interesting. I woke up at 7 a.m. to the sound of my phone vibrating. So I'm sort of starting right at the action. I'm up. I'm hearing almost onomatopoetic the sound the phone is vibrating. Oh no, who's texting me right now? I saw the most recent message first from my friend Alex in New York. Are you okay? Then the missed calls from my roommates and a message to call them as soon as I could. I called back, no answer. In the pit of my stomach, I knew what had happened. Facebook confirmed. A picture with flames spitting out of the front windows of my house. I let out a low groan. So the next piece I'm going to try thinking about trying to get to the apartment. Of course, there was nowhere to park. What I like about this is it sort of like starts us in the moment already. It's like I haven't given any explanation. So the reader's just pulled right into the action. Of course, there was nowhere to park. I left a note on my car. Please, no tickets. I live at 106 Walnut. And ran the 2 blocks to my apartment. The fire trucks were blocking the street on all 4 sides. Cambridge, Somerville, Everett, Boston, Brookline fire departments. I ran into my roommate's arms. Are you all okay? They smelled like smoke. So I'm starting with description of the setting and those sensory details, like they smelled like smoke, me running to the apartment. The next one I'm going to start really with description and sensory details. And this one is about when I actually was in the apartment trying to get my stuff out. The smell was unbearable. It was hot and smelled of old smoke, the largest and wrongest campfire of all time. Then I got into the dark building, up the wrecked wet stairs, singed and covered in broken wooden glass, and into my apartment. Joining the fire smells was rotten food, the fridge left open by the people who had broken in. And then finally, another type of lead that I enjoy is starting at the end. So I'm going to start at the end of this story, sort of when it's all resolved. And it's almost like I'm sort of from the perspective of myself now, looking back, except for this is like then, but looking back. As I sat on my bed in my new apartment, I let out a long sigh. Suddenly, images of the months before flashed through my brain. Smoke, charred wood, long days sitting at McDonald's with nowhere to go. And the weight of the summer hit me all at once. I sat and cried and remembered. So once you draft out a couple of possible leads, then you want to kind of look back, maybe share with a partner and pick your strongest lead. So for me, I actually Spoiler, I wrote these a couple years ago. And with my students at the time, I had them vote on the lead they liked the best. And there was kind of a tie between these last two, where I start with the really intense sensory details and I start with the reflection. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this reflection because I like how it frames the beginning and the end of the story in my theme. So now I've added in my lead. Let's see how it sounds. As I sat on my bed in my new apartment, I let out a long sigh. Suddenly, images of the months before flashed through my brain. Smoke, charred wood, long days sitting at McDonald's with nowhere to go, and the weight of the summer hit me all at once. I sat and cried and remembered. Maybe I'll put a little divider here to show that we're moving backwards in time. It was early in the morning, the day after my last day of my first year of teaching. Yeah, I like that. So, once again, to write a strong lead, you're going to look back, think about the most intense or interesting events. Think about what's going to build your theme right from the start, and then write yourself a few options going from there.